Okay,
Good
shall I
morning.
start?
Okay, Maharaj, good to start. Pranams again.
Om Namastri Etirajaya Vivekananda Surya Satchi Sukasvarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Pitagner Dahika Shakti Ramakrishne Stahya Sarvavidya Swarupam Tam Sharadam Pranamam. So I think we are, where uh, Thakur was in Vrindavan, where he met Gangamai. Gangamai became very fond of me. She was an old woman who lived all alone in a hut near the Nidhuvan. Referring to my spiritual condition in ecstasy, she said is the very embodiment of Radha. I think that was one of the closest identities of Sri Ramakrishna to that she was like Radha, he was. She addressed me as Dulali. When with her, I used to forget my food and drink, my bath, and all thought of going home. Eh? On some days, Sridhar used to bring food from home and feed me. Gangami also would serve me with food prepared by her own hands. Gangamai used to experience trances. At such times, a great crowd would come to see her. One day, in a state of ecstasy, she claimed on Hridaya's shoulders, I didn't want to leave her and return to Calcutta. Everything was arranged for me to stay with her. I was to eat double boiled rice, and we had to have our beds on either side of the cottage. All the arrangements had been made, and Hridaya said, you have such a weak stomach. Who will look after you? Why? Said Gangami, I shall look after him. I will nurse him. As Hridaya dragged me by one hand and she by the other, I remembered my mother who was then living alone here in the Nahabat of the temple garden. I found it impossible to stay away from her and said to Gangamai, no, I must go. I loved the atmosphere of Vrindavan. There, Sabasyachi ka tum thoda dikha. You take. So you see, remember, this is something very very important. Thakur had absolutely no attachment whatsoever. He was not connected with the world in any way. Still, for Thakur to say that, I cannot. I was remembering my mother, and I found it impossible to stay away from her. What is it? What does it mean? Of course, we can only guess. It's very difficult to explain it fully. But always from what little we understand, we try to analyze and accept it. So, Sri Ramakrishna was, although his mind was always on guard, he had no connection to the world whatsoever. But he had such a sensitive and compassionate heart. See, when you have a human body, some elements of human behavior would creep in. Probably, he knew that his mother became widow many years ago when he was very young. All along, she had been living like that. She lost her eldest son also. Probably all that, made him think that why at this age give her this little, uh, pangs of suffering that way. Might be. Or another is, probably Sri Ramakrishna wanted to set the highest example. Although he had Tutapri had initiated him into even sannyasa while giving the Vedanta teachings. Yet he always, for all outward purposes, he lived like a householder only. His own wife was living in Dakshineshwar, although they were not connected in any way in that sense, but yet she was there. So, as a householder, what is the highest dharma? If you're a monk, if you have really given up the world, if you cut off your relations, then it's different. As a householder, serving one's Ramkrishna always used to give the highest place to parents. See, even those who want, even to realize God, you need the blessings of your parents. Without that, you can't realize God, he would say that. So, that way he wanted to show the highest example, because no, for him there was no other connection in the world except God. So in a place where he found the highest spiritual vibration, it would have been justifiable for him to stay in Vrindavan. But he thought that no, my mother is alone. Although he never did anything to her personally in that sense, his mere presence nearby would comfort her. He didn't want her to go through the sufferings at that old age. So, as a householder, also, he wanted to set the highest traditions. And moreover, although he knew that his Gangamai was very spiritually elevated, not that, he himself had gone to such a state that any place, wherever he lived, would become a great tirtha. Supposing Thakur had come away from Dakshineswar, it would not be the Dakshineswar we see today. Dakshineswar became what it is because Sri Ramakrishna lived. He continued to live some years there, particularly the last few years of his stay on earth. That was the place where the nucleus for a great movement to come later was really, that's where it originated. So Dakshineswar is extraordinarily significant. That is where the big transformation of Swami Vivekananda took place, where he accepted Mother Kali. There is a great significance behind that event. All the future disciples started coming one by one. In a small way, in fact, he gave Geruva cloth to many of them, 12 of them in in the last days. Anyway, that didn't happen in Dakshineswar. But Dakshineswar is where they all started gathering around it. So that place has an extraordinary significance in the Ramakrishna movement. So probably, although it is not expressed here, just because of that, again the scenario shifted to Dakshineswar, where he continued to enact his play on earth. Otherwise, of course, Vrindavan is already known as a great place of pilgrimage. Many great saints had lived. Sri Krishna himself had sported there. So, Sri Ram, Vrindavan was surcharged with spirituality. But Dakshineswar was just coming up. The temple had been built, consecrated. But the spiritual waves that emanated from Dakshineswar, Sri Ramakrishna was the point of origin. From him only it all originated. Because of his life, his sadhana, his experiences. Going back from here also, I think he must have had many, many more spiritual experiences of the highest order there. So probably to make it a complete Tirtha Kshetra. In that was another probably a hidden idea why he decided to go back. Of course, beyond all that, it's not possible to really fathom the mind of such an extraordinary personality like Sri Ramakrishna. We can only say something which would be nothing other than foolishness. But then, still, it's very difficult. No, he had absolutely nothing that way. Nothing could tie him to the world. That was somewhere he says when he was next day. This was another that incident when Akshay, whom Sri Ramakrishna used to love so much, when Akshay died, right at that point, he said, when others were weeping and wailing and they were so upset, he was such a young person, so handsome, he was a pujari there, he said, as if a sword was being, taken out from its case, scaffold. But he says, the very next day when I thought of Akshay, I felt as if somebody was wringing my heart like a wet towel. Cannot be more graphic than that. He tells Manilal, see, me, there's no connection to the world. I can't even keep my cloth on my body. If I can feel so much, I understand how much you must be feeling. So, in Sri Ramakrishna's case, all that he taught, apart from although he was such a spiritual giant, he had experienced everything, every type of experience. The experiences have gone beyond the Vedas, as he himself used to say. Still, all his teachings were largely he led by his example. He himself showed how important it is to regard one's own parents, to look after them, to care for them, to think of them. That was such a great lesson he wanted to teach everybody. That's why he said, when I thought of my mother, I found it impossible to stay, so I decided to go back. So even in that sannyasa, he said, it's possible. Tatapuri said, before sannyasa, before Vedanta, the highest knowledge of Brahman, one has to give up every kind of bondage, remove everything. Sam said all that is possible provided you can do it in secret, not openly. Because he knew that, it's only just for the purpose of getting that highest knowledge. He was maybe right from birth itself, he was a Tyagi of the highest order. But the external symbols, all that, he did not want to wear because, again, his mother was there. He didn't want to detach himself or tear himself away from the family in that sense. Probably it's very difficult to explain why he said that. I thought of my mother, I found it impossible to stay away from her. See, in those days, it was not very easy to travel, because Mathur Babu made all arrangements, booked special train carriages and all that. That's why he could go like that. Otherwise, it was not easy to travel. About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal, the offerings from the temple of Kali. After taking his noonday rest, he resumed his conversation with the devotees. Every now and then he uttered the holy word Om or repeated the sacred names of the deities. After sunset, the evening worship was performed in the temples. Since it was the day of Vijaya, the devotees first saluted the Divine Mother and took the dust of the master's feet. So they were talking about his stay in Vrindavan. Uh, So he was narrating, that he had stayed long ago. Then he was only recounting the experiences he had there and how it was and all that. So, but yeah, actually it was all happening here in Dakshineshwar only. It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The master was standing near the shelf where the food was kept when Baburam and M arrived from Calcutta and saluted him. Sri Ramakrishna said to them with a smile, I was going to take some sweets from the shelf, but no sooner did I put my hand on them when a lizard dropped on my body. At once I removed my hand. All laugh. So again, it's another Sri Ramakrishna who he virtually broke every rule in anything formal, starting from the worship on to everything. Nothing could bind him, nothing could hold him that way. He was beyond all rules, regulations, formalities, do's and don'ts, injunctions, whatever you might call. In everything, he had a very special and unique way, the way he was dealing with it. Regarding food, regarding other things, everything was. But still, a few things he did observe. Like, the lizard. So that's considered a ill omen. Then he said, no, you should not do that when it happens. And then regarding travels, he used to say that Thursday afternoon during Barwell or something like the Rahukal of South, you shouldn't travel like that. Something small. That's what he said. When you have a human body, there will be some traits of human personality in such a divine soul also. Oh yes, one should observe all these things. You see, Rakal is ill and my limbs ache too. Do you know what is the matter? This morning as I was leaving my bed, I saw a certain person whom I took for Laka. Oh yes, physical features should be studied. The other day Narendra brought one of his friends, a man with only one good eye, though the other eye was not totally blind. I said to myself, what is this trouble that Narendra has brought with him? So, people with squint eyes, other these things, somehow used to. A certain person comes here, but I can't eat any food that he brings. He works in an office with a salary of 20 rupees and earns another 20 by writing false bills. Imagine. I can't utter a word in his presence because he tells lies. Sometimes he stays here for 2 or 3 days without going to his office. Can you guess his purpose? It is that I should recommend him to someone for a job somewhere else. Balram comes from a family of devout Vaishnavas. His father, now an old man, is a pious devotee. He has a tuft of hair on his head, a rosary of tulsi beads round his neck, and a string of beads in his hand. He devotes his time to the repetition of God's name. He owns much property in Orissa and has built temples to Radha Krishna in Kothar, Vrindavan, and other places, establishing free guest houses as well. So he was a very pious Vaishnava and who also did quite a lot of charity. Balram, Balram, a certain person came here the other day. I understand he's a slave of that black hag of a wife. Why is that people do not see God? It is because the barrier of woman and gold. How important he was to say to you the other day. A Paramsa came to my father who fed him with chicken curry. So Thakur did not like the other that way. Chicken was considered mlecha food those days. It was absolutely prohibited for caste Brahmins. Of course, when he says barrier of woman and gold means it's not particularly with reference to women. For men also, you would say the the attraction or the pull for the other gender is what really hinders one from pursuing a deep spiritual life. This is what he meant. Orthodox Hindus are forbidden to eat chicken. Here, footnotes are see, the dropping of a lizard on the body is considered an omen. Orthodox Hindus in Bengal believe that the first phase seen in the morning indicates the weather day will bring good or evil. So that's why, as soon as you get up in the morning, why people used to keep the pictures of gods and goddesses. First thing you should see in the morning is the face of God. Start with that name, repeating that. So almost, Latu would not open his eyes unless he sees Thakur. He will be keeping his eyes closed and, groping about in like a blind man. Oh, where are you? Where are you? Would say. So Thakur has to come before him. He will just open his eyes and see Thakur, and then only he will start the day. He was like that. In a present state of mind, I can eat a little fish soup which has been offered to the Divine Mother beforehand. I can't eat any meat even if it is offered to the Divine Mother. But taste it with the end of my finger, lest she should be angry. Mother's prasad, if he refuses to eat, if mother gets angry, what to do? So he will touch with the finger and then maybe. Sometimes he used to put tilak also. Well, can you explain this state of my mind? Once I was going from Bardwan to Kamarpur in a bullock cart, and a great storm arose. Some people gathered near the cart. My companion said they were robbers. So I began to take the names of God, calling sometimes on Kali, sometimes on Rama, sometimes on Hanuman. What do you think of that? Was the martyrs hinting that God is one but is addressed differently by different sects? You see, it remains, Thakur, he used to tell a story where I think someone built a big house, mud house or something. Then, suddenly huge storm started blowing and then it was stuttering. And he was saying first Hanuman, 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 Kali, Kali, everything. Finally said Shalar God. Then it crashed. So like that, he was trying to say that anything, any name which would save probably. So no, that's what people when they are desperate, desperate when any worldly adversity or trouble or problem or difficulty is approaching, or people know somehow or other, whatever would save, that would be the normal kind of this thing. So Thakur was probably hinting that, how one behaves when adversity approaches. Master to Balram, Maya is nothing but woman and gold. A man living in mist gradually loses his spiritual alertness. He thinks all is well with him. The scavenger carries a tub of night soil in his head and in course of time loses his repulsion to it. See how graphically he describes indulgence in completely, worldly life. That's what he means. It doesn't mean woman or man or anything. He means, in a sense, a life completely dominated by that kind of lower feelings, emotions, and indulgence. The scavenger loses. One gradually acquires love of God through the practice of chanting God's name and glories to Yam. One should not be ashamed of chanting God's holy name. Because among the companions, were with other youngsters, they were all much younger than uh, Yam. So that day when he came, they were all talking loudly, enjoying, and he was quiet. And Thakur said, "Oh, over to boyish beshi hoyechi na. He is a little older. That's why he's not able to express himself like that." So that's why again he always remembers, advises the right time. Here is an occasion. He says, one should not be ashamed of chanting God's name. As the saying goes, one does not succeed so long as one has these three: shame, hatred, fear. Lajja, grina, bhoy. These things should not be there. See, they're all, you can't get these parallels from any scripture or anything like that. Exactly, Thakur. See, these are the three basic feelings, that really, uh, that a sense of everything is, connected with the idea, either the body or the ahankara in that sense. So, to go beyond the idea of body and mind, etc. These are the three things that really dominate us, the idea of shame, the idea of hatred, idea of fear. So he says, as long as one has these three, it's not possible to succeed in the goal of spiritual life. At Kamarpukur, they sing Kirtan very well. And moreover, see what we were talking earlier, to Balram and Master Masha was also there because they were still in the world, they were in the family. They were trying to do sadhana, no doubt. But M was also oscillating between world and Thakur in that sense. Even after coming in contact with Thakur, still he had a lot of, interest, participation in the family and things so on. So whenever there's an occasion, Thakur gives him so that he understands. At Kamarpukur, they sing Kirtan very well. The devotional music is sung to the accompaniment of drums. To Balram, have you installed any image at Vrindavan? Balram, yes, sir. We have a grove where Krishna is worshipped. Master, I have been to Vrindavan. The Nidhu grove is very nice indeed. And we go to the next chapter. The Master and Keshav. Very interesting. 27th October 1882. It was Friday, the day of Lakshmi Puja. Keshav Chandra Sen had arranged a boat trip on the Ganges for Sri Ramakrishna. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the steamboat with Keshav and his Brahmo followers cast anchor in the Ganges alongside the Kali temple at Dakshineswar. The passengers saw in front of them the bathing ghat and the Chandni. To their left, in the temple compound, stood 6 temples of Shiva, and to the right, another 6 of Shiva temples. The white temple of the Kali temple, the treetops of the Panchavati, and the silhouette of pine grove trees stood high against the blue autumn sky. The gardens between the two Nahabats were filled with fragrant flowers, and along the bank of the Ganges were rows of flowering plants. The blue sky was reflected in the brown water of the river, the sacred Ganges, associated with the most ancient traditions of Aryan civilization. The outer world appeared soft and serene, and the hearts of the Brahmo devotees were filled with peace. Ramakrishna was in his room talking with Vijay and Haralal. Some disciples of Keshav entered, bowing before the master. They said to him, "Sir, the steamer has arrived. Keshav Babu has asked us to take you there." A small boat was to carry the master to the steamer. No sooner did he get into the boat than he lost outer consciousness in Samadhi. Vijay was with him. I mean, it's impossible even to imagine that scene, how it was. He was talking with Vijay and Harilal, and suddenly he said, "You have come." Keshav has asked us to bring you. He goes there, enters into the boat, and immediately loses outer consciousness. I mean, I think, many of those people there, they were also totally puzzled. What is this? What happens to this person? Even Keshav, when Master Moshe, it took a long time for him to understand. He has only heard. Is it possible for someone suddenly to go into such ecstatic states? We have not, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was known to go into such states, but not at this frequency. And just this swinging between that absolute God consciousness and coming down and immediately talking with all those around in a very funny and childlike manner, joking and laughing, and then suddenly, I mean, I don't know what is, how does one understand? How is it possible? Is it really? See, our Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar actually put his finger and touched the eyeballs to see whether he was really feeling. No reaction. Can anyone touch? Even if it comes some 1 inch before, the eyes would close automatically. No one can touch your eyeballs like that. Immediately the eyes will close. But when the Sarkar touched, no reaction. No, you could not feel any pulse. So Ramkrishna then M was among the passengers. So Vijay also went with him. M was with passenger. As the boat came along the steamer, all rushed to the railing to have a view of Sri Ramakrishna. Keshav became anxious to get him safely on board. With great difficulty, the master was brought back to consciousness of the world and taken to a cabin in the steamer. Still in an abstracted mood, he walked mechanically, leaning on a devotee for support, probably Master Mashair. Keshav and others bowed before him, but he was not aware of them. Inside the cabin, there were a few chairs and a table. He was made to sit on one of them, Keshav and Vijay occupying two others. Some devotees were also seated, most of them on the floor, while many others had to stand outside. They appeared eagerly through the door and windows. Sri Ramakrishna again went into deep samadhi and became totally unconscious of the world. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, also had these three states. It was completely samadhi, then ardhavajya dasha, and then normal consciousness. After also, initially, he was not totally unconscious, like he was talking. He was not talking, he was silent, he was in bhava. But here, we went into deep samadhi, absolute silence. As the air in the room was stuffy because of crowded people, Keshav opened the windows. He was embarrassed to meet Vijay since they had differed on certain principles of the Brahma Samaj, and Vijay had separated himself from the Keshav's organization, joining another society. The Brahmo devotees looked wistfully at the master. Gradually, he came back to sense consciousness, but the divine intoxication still lingered. He said to himself in a whisper, so this is at the next stage. From the highest samadhi, nirvikalpa, where he was totally in the state of oneness with Brahman, or the highest level of consciousness. When it would come down, it would be kind of in a mid space like. There will be consciousness, partly there will be awareness, but he would not be conversing or behaving like very in his normal state. When he comes down further, then you talk, joke, and then all that can happen. So he says, Mother, why have you brought me here? They are hedged around and not free. Can I free them? So he could clearly see the crowd who are all gathered. So they're all completely bound hand and feet. They're all hedged around. Can I free them? Why have you brought me here? Did the master find that the people assembled were locked within the prison walls of the world? Did their helplessness make the master address these words to the Divine Mother? Ramakrishna was very, very conscious, Even when the youngsters like Rakal, Naren, and others used to come to him, many others, the close band of devotees, householders, and the future monks, he would sometimes pray to the Divine Mother, Ma, you please give something. Otherwise, how would they have faith in this place? He would say, let them have some experience, something, so that they feel that spiritual life is a certainty. No, spiritual life is like, completely like groping in the dark. You have no idea. We have no idea. Why? Because we live in the world of senses. Where the very beginning of spiritual life is Atindriya Jagat, this beyond senses. Of course, we might, if you're in the world, if there are several kinds of people, many are busy with absolutely worldly work, worldly duties, earning money, and so on and so forth. As you become little more evolved, a little more refined in your actions, in your participation, etc., you may a little delink yourself from worldly pursuits, and you may read scriptures, you may do all that, you may do a little practice and all that. But still, these are all in the realm of the senses only. But spiritual life, to have certainty, to have conviction. One is, see, in our tradition, of course, the conviction or the certainty or the proof is the Shastra. Shastra Pramana is considered because uh, you cannot get any Pramana in this world because it belongs to a different world altogether, the transcendental world. So you rely on Shastras. But still, to have that absolute certainty, unless one has something, some experience, it's very difficult to believe. Even to relate to Thakur, to Ma, to Swamiji, to any God whom we worship. In times of test, in times of real difficulty, trouble, all that would collapse. That's the problem. When you're all right, when you're teaching, when you're doing something, telling others, that is okay. When you really face very difficult, critical situations, that is a real test. If one is a true devotee, does one believe in Thakurman Swamiji, when what is called extreme adversity, in terms of the world only, there's nothing adverse if you talk of transcendental view, life, and all that, understanding. This world, yes, somebody dying, huge loss, huge illness, or whatever it is, all that is all. So, can one still hold on to one's ideals, still believe that Thakur Man Swamiji they are with us, they will help me, they'll bail me out, or they are their only support. Even if I get any blow or anything in the world, I have to only depend on them. It's very difficult to develop that kind of a deep, abiding faith. Only by their grace, probably, I really don't know. So Thakur was saying, why have you brought me here? Can I really help them? So Krishna was gradually becoming conscious of the outside world. Neil Madhav of Ghazipur and a Brahmo devotee were talking about Pawari Baba. He was a great saint who lived in Ghazipur. Finally, he gave himself up in the flames. Swamiji was deeply impressed by him. The master would hardly talk, he only smiled. The devotee continued, Sir Pawari Baba keeps your photograph in his room. Pointing to his body, the master said with a smile, just a pillowcase. See his understanding. Just a pillow. What is that? There's nothing. What does it matter? The master continued, but you should remember that the heart of the devotee is the abode of God. Of course, in one sense, it's all nothing. It is absolutely has no value. It's only the case in the outer shell or whatever it is. It has nothing. But if you, in another sense, if you understand, the heart is where God resides. It's the abode of God. Not the physical heart, the spiritual heart in us. So that is why, uh, Vibhishana, Vibhishana, after he became the king of Lanka, a person, a human being visited Lanka. He simply worshipped him so much. Oh, he belongs to the same clan as Ramachandra. Like Rama came as a human being. So God also, when he takes, when he comes as an avatar, a descendant on earth, he comes only in the human body. So the same thing The body can be taken in several sense. If you really nurture it and care only for the skin and the outer thing and the pleasures and so on, maintaining it and caring for it, day and night thinking of it, that's one way. But if you think this is the abode of God, so just as any body for that matter is the abode of God. So how can I think of my own body? In what sense can I relate to it? How can I use it so that God really manifests there? How can I really care for this body in such a way that it is a manifestation of God? So there are several ways of, several spiritual attitudes which one can do sadhana. He dwells no doubt in all beings, but he especially manifests himself in the heart of the devotee. You see, in one sense, as in the sense of Advaita, as consciousness, he is there, all pervading. In fact, it's only that, there's nothing else. But even if you say in a sense of the dualistic school of thought also, the whole creation is, it's all God's creation only. So there is something of God, some is touch, something connected with Him, divine, about all creation. So that way it's extraordinary. But in that also He says, manifests Himself in the heart of the devotee. So this is where, so something gives many examples like that. Say, Jamindar has a huge estate. It's everywhere, it's all his. It can be anywhere. But usually you go and meet him in the drawing room. That's where he is most easily accessible. So the same way is a heart. That's why all our meditation, all our practices are said you are supposed to meditate in the heart, imagining the spiritual heart where your Ishta Devata resides. A landlord, now so he comes to that. A landlord at one time or another will all parts of his estate, but people say is generally to be found in a particular drawing room. The heart of the devotee is the drawing room of God. So this way Thakur always says, see somewhere else we saw a little before how he spoke so disparagingly about life, about body, about all that. Now he says the other aspect, how it can be different, huh? Where you say that can the same body, if it is used differently. One thing is, you can pamper it, you can live a completely worldly life based only on the idea of body and mind. That's one thing. But the same body, you've got the body. Only you have to go beyond that. You have to realize the truth. But use this body, use this instrument, which God has given you, which nature has given you, to do sadhana in such a way that your life becomes elevated. You can think of, you can use this to meditate, you can use this to serve God, you can use it to serve devotees of God. In every way, every associated with his body can be made holy, can be made sacred. So that's why again and again he's saying that the heart of the devotee is the drawing room of God. Then of course he goes next again to jnana, etc. So we can take it up next time. Today is April, no May, sorry.
May. 2nd May.
Yes. So now we have few minutes for question answers. If anyone has, of course, it's a very interesting reading lastly.
Yeah. Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, I have a question. Um, I have often heard that whenever the Shastras also they refer to our heart as being the power of the God. But you'll quickly to that you add that not the physical heart, but the spiritual heart. Now,
Yes.
what is the difference between the physical heart and spiritual heart?
Yeah, see, in some of the Upanishads also, in the Kathopanishad, etc., it is very talked about elaborately. It's somewhere, see, at our level, it can only imagine. The physical heart is clearly located at a particular place, and it is physically present. But the spiritual heart, the moment you say spirit, it's not related to exactly body. So the spiritual heart is not something which is physical, but it's a spiritual heart is again physical, like a physical heart. How can the Ishta Devata occupy that? Will he sit amidst blood and all that? No. So spiritual heart is, that kind of a space, they say. Hridaya Guha, the cave of the heart, they say. There you can meditate on the Supreme, meditate on the highest, or meditate on the Ishta Devata, meditate on your God or goddesses. So, for that purpose, the meditation that you are taught is you feel the presence of God here, because there are detailed ways how they do it. So that is how it's called a spiritual heart.
Yes, so that theoretical explanation we understand, Maharaj. So when we are sitting for meditation, we being so bound with our body, moment we think heart, it automatically comes over here. Hathta jerokom, it's on your chest. Okay.
Yeah,
So when we have to imagine, so when do we imagine God to be seated over there? That's my question actually.
I don't know. See, I can only give you some hint. Probably, these things have to be directly clarified from one's
The
own
Guru.
guru or
Okay, okay.
someone who is
Mm-hmm.
authorized to be a guru. I'm not authorized to be a guru, but we
Acha.
also conduct some meditation sessions and all that. What I feel is, what we can do is,
Mm-hmm.
see, when you sit for meditation, when you try to meditate on Thakur,
Mm-hmm.
so, forget everything else. Forget
Yeah.
the idea of the physical body. He cannot come and sit here, not that way. See, imagine all these have virtually, gone and melted into consciousness. There's only that the figure, the living figure, not the picture, not the statue. The living figure of Thakur is there. That is the idea. That's how one has to meditate, probably. Forgetting this physical body, our legs, our chest, and all that is all vanished. It's all not there. They all got merged into the source, maybe consciousness. And then there's only that living, luminous form of the divine. One, if you start attempting it after some maybe months or year or so, if you consistently try to do it, then the uh, other associations, other thoughts would most probably go away.
Okay. So we have to, in spite, so basically it is fake it till we make it kind of. We have to go on thinking because it's not easy to,
Yeah.
I mean, I can intellectualize what you're saying, but to bring it into
No, no.
practice
Yeah.
where
No, no.
everything melts
See,
away.
yeah. See, the point is, I mean, even now, if you close your eyes and serious, you can forget everything else. You need not even think that it's not like dissolving sugar in water, anything like that. You can simply say that nothing is there. Only, only Thakur, nothing else. But one great Swami even gave this idea like,
Mm-hmm.
see, I'm little afraid of discussing all this too deeply because they're all very subtle subjects, and I'm honestly, I'm not empowered to discuss all that. But still, because they're asking, I'm telling. If it's convenient, you may follow. Otherwise, you may go to President Maharaj, or somebody who is truly authorized to say. One Swami even gave this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that you have become a small child, 5 or 6 year old, and you're sitting. Not
Mm-hmm.
here, outside, that way. And then here, your Ishta is there. That way one can also meditate, you will say. Where you are not in this body, etc. You have become a small child, 5 or 6 year old, or something like that. So you are sitting in a meditative posture, and in front of you is a luminous living form of your Ishta Devata. But I think, as you start practicing, you might not even need that. You can straight away feel that simply that Ishta is present in a luminous form.
Got it, Maharaj. Thank you. Any other
Please,
questions? Anyone else?
all these
No,
are
no.
very personal. Please don't quote me
Maharaj,
anywhere.
thank you.
No,
Also,
no,
I
don't
have
worry.
attended this channel. The mainly Jhuma, she has helped me, and
Okay.
all the other devotees also, they have accepted me. So I joined the channel, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody?
মহারাজ মহারাজ নমস্কার মহারাজ আমি বাংলাতেই জিজ্ঞেস করছি আচ্ছা ঠাকুর যে এই যে বললেন লজ্জা ঘৃণা ভয় তিন থাকতে নয় এইটা একটু বলবেন যে ইউ সেড ইটস দ্যাট আই এম আনএবল টু প্রসিড ইন স্পিরিচুয়াল লাইফ ইফ আই হ্যাভ দিস থ্রি এটা একটুখানি বলবেন মহারাজ
Yes, I mean, again, why do this? What is the origin of all these emotions? See, lajja, grina, bhai, where do they originate? See, one is the body and there is the mind, isn't it? Of course, it's more of the mind, but body is also involved largely. Both this body and mind are the two things which really are attached to these three feelings or emotions. But ultimately, because we have to go beyond the idea of body and mind. If these are there, that means we are still rooted to the idea of body. So only when you're beyond these emotions, you go beyond the idea of body and mind. And that's how you can really go forward in spiritual life.
thank you মহারাজ নমস্কার
Thank you, Ratna, for asking this question. This was my question also. And Maharaj, thank you for clarifying. I think your time is up. You're busy.
Yeah.
So, it's all right. Please accept our pranams.
Namaskar.
Thank
Om
you, Maharaj.
Shanti,
Pranam.
Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Pranam.
Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.
নমস্কার মহারাজ